Access granted.
Tune in, discover, engage, elevate. Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, Joshua Van Alstyne, and welcome to a new episode of Artifact, where we talk about nature and history, art, culture, and this time we're talking about technology and innovation with our very own Innovation Executive Director at the Royal Commission for AlUla, Mr. Ahmed Daoud. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So as the Innovation Executive Director at the Royal Commission for AlUla, could you please give us an overview of your role and your responsibilities within the Commission?
So the Innovation Department, which I have the absolute honor of overseeing and leading at the Royal Commission for AlUla, our objective is really to serve as an internal function that allows us to explore what's at the periphery, what's happening outside of our core business, what's happening outside of the projects that are extremely important to our development and our growth, meeting our objectives, meeting our phase 2 delivery KPIs in terms of number of visitors, number of keys, really important things to have an innovation department that operates outside of these core day-to-day responsibilities and explores what's happening at the periphery. What are the trends shaping the world? Is there a more efficient, more sustainable way to do some of the things that we're already doing based on new emerging trends or new emerging technologies? So we look at both technological, or what we call socio-technological trends, and what are the socio-economic trends, right, that we're seeing. Things like revenge travel was really relevant to us, a trend really relevant to us in tourism. Where
what is that?
So people post-COVID and still today, many people the world over are traveling about 400% as much as they used to travel before COVID. But obviously that means they're carving out a lot more time to travel than they otherwise would have, meaning they're doing a lot of regular at-home stuff while they're traveling. So it's actually this desire to escape that you felt the entire time you were locked down is manifesting itself in excessive travel for a lot of people. So people are spending disproportionately more than they used to travel in total, but per trip is actually going down. So unless you have a really great way to understand how the world is changing, you're not able to adapt. So that's one of the things that we do.
So essentially what I'm imagining is, from your explanation, you're essentially the telescope, the microscope, the thermometer of the Royal Commission for AlUla. Like, you are essentially taking the temperature on what's going on in the world, super analyzing the current trends, and trying to estimate the futuristic trends through your telescope. So you're almost like a doctor of time when it comes to the Royal Commission for AlUla and how humans are interacting with that time.
You sound like a Doctor Who fan.
I've never watched Doctor Who, but I'm definitely going to look it up as soon as I get home.
So it's increasingly difficult when you have people that competent to identify things in their periphery. So to use another analogy, we look at ourselves as a scout function. We kind of form a cone around what's currently happening and look outwards and say, what can we bring back that's of value? And then once we understand these trends at the intersection of what our long-term goals are, we develop that into kind of concepts or ideas for new businesses or verticals, and then we either incubate them and develop them within the department to a certain level of maturity. We build prototypes, we'll build digital products sometimes, and then at the right stage of maturity, we transfer those or hand them over to the right business.
Stay tuned as Ahmed Daoud unravels the concept of innovation at the Royal Commission for AlUla. Find out about his fascinating insight when we get back on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
And we're back with Ahmed Daoud. All right, so when we talk about innovation at the Royal Commission for AlUla, how would you define it? And is innovation something that is relatively new to AlUla or to the Arabian Peninsula as a whole?
Let's start off with a common understanding of how we define the term. And the way we define it at the Royal Commission for AlUla is innovation is the use of new or existing tools, technologies, or services to either unpack or exploit non-obvious value chains, to optimize existing value chains, or to deprioritize inefficient value chains, right? So based on that definition, what is the unique flavor that innovation takes in AlUla? Innovation in AlUla, in my opinion, is more interesting than almost anywhere else that I could think of, because it's a place where innovation is supported, encouraged, and empowered. But at the same time, it's a non-trivial constraint satisfaction problem, to use a term from artificial intelligence, right? So back in college, when I was studying artificial intelligence, there's category problems, constraint satisfaction problems. And those are always the ones that I found most intriguing and fascinating, where you have multiple constraints to satisfy, and you have to have an artificial intelligence agent that can find the optimal solution. And in AlUla, we have an existing local community that you need to respect, a rich land and rich history that we need to be stewards of, UNESCO heritage protected site that you have very clear and stringent requirements around what you cannot do around them. Yeah, Jabal Ikma, as well as Hegra and the Tomb of Al-Hiyan and these other tombs around it, magnificent structures that really deserve that responsible stewardship. But also resource constraints, right? We don't have direct access to water. We have groundwater that we use for a variety of different things, including agriculture, including supporting the local community. We're not greenfield, which means innovation there needs to be purpose-driven, needs to be authentic, needs to be connected to the ground, connected to the people, connected to the history, connected to the culture, but still keep us interesting, fresh, and relevant. So satisfying all these constraints is really what makes me feel like I have the best job I could think of.
What about innovation in the Arabian Peninsula as a whole?
Well, I think when we look back, and fortunately there's more and more common knowledge about this, but still many people don't know about the 1,000 years of enlightenment of the Arab Muslim world, right? A lot of it was centered here and came out of here, right? A lot of these scholars came out of here. And there was, because of the harsh environment, because of the conditions, because of the beliefs and value system of a lot of the people that exist in the Arabian Peninsula, you had the perfect conditions for innovation, right? Add on to that the superposition of all these trade routes that came around, and innovation really happens at the intersection. In the spaces in between the value chains is where the new value chains emerge. So we had all of these different ways of thinking, thoughts, and ideas coming together in a place that had to solve real problems every day around heat and temperature and resource constraints and access to water. And how do we navigate at night if the morning is too hot? So let's look at the stars. Now let's name the stars. Now, to this day, the majority of stars have Arabic names.
Absolutely.
Right? So innovation, invention, born out of intersection of different ways of thinking, out of a belief in a value system that really encouraged science and thinking and reading from the very first verse of the holy text, created an environment where there was a lot of innovation. In AlUla itself, we have innovative water irrigation systems that date back to 2,000 years. Because in the middle of the desert, you have thriving oases that formed, along with trade, the core of the economic infrastructure, right? So how do you have a thriving agricultural ecosystem in the middle of the desert? You have to be really good and innovative out of necessity in how you manage water, because you also need it for your own sustenance.
Take me back to where you were saying innovation happens at the crossroads, right? Like, it's not like people are like inoculated artificially by inspiration or innovation. They have to meet and communicate and interact with other people in order to build off existing ideas. Nothing is 100% original. Those innovative peoples in AlUla, who were they getting their innovation from, and who were they sharing their inspiration with?
Well, I think a lot of this can be attributed back to the trade routes. And one thing that we say a lot is AlUla is a crossroads of civilizations, and it always has been. And I believe it's essential for it to continue to be so. And so far, we've been fortunate that we've been able to maintain that legacy to a significant degree. So when you have young people today that you can ask them about Greek mythology, some of them might know about Greek mythology if they're not in Greece, these are not Greek young kids, but these are kids who have access to unbounded amounts of knowledge at their literal fingertips. Many of them would not know who Medusa is, right? Or a lot about Greek mythology. But if you go to AlUla, you'll see that the tombs of these ancient Arabian people from millennia ago who did not have Google, had the heads of Medusa guarding their tombs. Right? So the knowledge sharing was incredible, even by today's standards, in the absence of technology.
Because the integration of that knowledge.
Exactly. And it shows you the degree of tolerance and acceptance of different ideas, competing ideas from different parts of the world that really created a thriving economy in a place that many people wanted to be, not only for the oases, but also for the exchange of knowledge and the trade.
So I'm imagining people were getting inspiration from Egypt, from the Phoenicians, from the Greeks, as you mentioned, from the Romans, from the Persians, from the peoples that were populating Anatolia, from East Africa, from India, even perhaps. That place, that part of the world was so connected, and probably a great incubator for innovative ideas. And you're carrying the staff of that heritage, literally. And so I'm 100% more than confident, more than sure that you're going to do great things with that staff and with that flag. All right, stay with us to delve into the transformative endeavors shaping the landscape of this remarkable destination right here on Artifact. Stay tuned.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.
So, Ahmed, can you share some examples of the innovative projects or initiatives that you have been involved in AlUla?
Well, I'd like to start with where we just ended our last conversation.
Sure.
Right? So, as innovation, I think one of the things we want to, in terms of how do we prioritize, where do we focus, that becomes a challenge in its own right. So most organizations fail at innovation at the project selection phase, right? 70% of innovation failures actually happen there. So what do we do and what do we not do? And do we do all of it or do we do none of it? So we had to focus on what's really important to us. And we looked at what are our key economic drivers, because if we're going to fuel this continued growth in a way that's sustainable, we want to look at our economic drivers. So we want to look at agriculture, we want to look at tourism, right? And we were just talking about agriculture and innovation in agriculture. And there's a lot of innovation happening in agriculture now, and there's a lot of need for that. So one of the really interesting things that I'm very proud of that we did is several pilots of new agricultural technologies. And we were able to leverage some of the great work and innovation happening in the broader kingdom, right? So we went to KAUST University, several hours flight from us, and we visited a lot of their labs. We are partnered with KAUST University. We're on the KAUST Industry Advisory Board as an organization. And we found some technology that they had been using to identify for Aramco. We were able to take that same technology and apply it to the problem of early detection of invasive pest infestations in palm trees, which are otherwise undetectable until the tree starts keeling over.
The palm weevil.
The red palm weevil. You have to burn the tree down, and sometimes, just for good measure, you burn the trees next to it if you detect it a little too late.
They electrocute them even sometimes.
Yeah. So the challenge is, by the time you detect it, all the larvae now have a hard shell. You can't just treat it with a chemical or a pesticide. These same fiber optics used on the drill bits were used to identify the chewing on the larvae inside the tree before they were old enough to develop a shell. And we now are pulling at the threads of a potential solution that could help us solve this problem at scale. We're still working on how do we develop it at scale. And obviously that's a process of innovation. And that's something we're really proud of. And it's saving us a ton of water because a palm tree is an investment in the resources, the time, the livelihood of the farmer, of the community, but also of the water that they could have otherwise used in other ways. And,
Yes,
and this
a
tree,
mature palm tree is drinking 80 liters of water today.
and all that water that is ever drank goes down the drain, pun intended, once you have to burn it down. So I think we're going back to this notion of us continuing a legacy. In the same way the ancients in AlUla were able to use new methods and solutions for water management, now pressed with global warming and resource scarcity, we're having to do the same.
Tell us a little bit about, Ahmed, if you would. What are some of the notable innovations that have originated in AlUla, or that are from AlUla, that maybe people might not be familiar with?
Well, I think the advancements in water management systems, one of the things that I think is most notable and worth highlighting, just because, again, isn't the very first. It was an advancement that fit the environment and the needs that they had. And that is really the essence of innovation, right? Most of the things that we consider innovations are significant improvements over versions of themselves that have existed before.
Amazing. We'll be right back on Artifact with Ahmed Daoud. Stick around to uncover the tapestry of innovation designed to captivate and engage with Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
When it comes to the Royal Commission for AlUla and them targeting diverse audiences through different innovation initiatives and projects, what are some of those projects?
Well, I think when we talk about diverse audiences and in heritage tourism, in heritage sites or sites such as ours that have a core USP or value proposition around heritage, engaging younger audiences becomes a challenge because of the way they're used to creating and consuming culture in real time on social media, on digital platforms, in their homes, on their phones, getting them out half the way across the world to see a heritage site, to see a building that is magnificent, and part of its magnificence is its timeliness and how it has not changed in millennia. That is a harder sell for younger people. And what's an even harder sell is to tell them to come back again and see it in a year. So what the Royal Commission has done outside of anything that we've worked on is a tremendous job in making AlUla relevant to a growing audience with a diversified offering in arts and culture and music, with incredible music programming and activations year round, with a growing vertical in adventure for adventure offerings and adventure junkies of all levels to come and enjoy really unique differentiated adventure offerings in AlUla that are being developed and are going to be developed for the foreseeable future, as well as incredible wellness offerings that are currently underway as well with the new hospitality outlets. So there's a lot to do in AlUla already as it is. But how do we make the actual heritage, the actual stories and the narratives interesting and engaging to that younger audience outside of the music and the art and the culture in Wadi al-Fan, which is going to be a once in a lifetime, unlike anything else in the world, landscape art zone. So we thought to look at technology and see how can we leverage technology. And again, innovation is not technology. Innovation is creating new solutions. They may or may not be technologically based, but we looked at technology to say, how can we make heritage, our historical heritage that's really magnificent, these deep, rich stories, interesting.
200,000 years of
continuous human heritage.
Civilization.
Yeah. So how can you tell these stories in a way that's entertaining, that's not an online course? And you want to tell these stories. You desperately want to tell these stories the more you know about them, but you want it to be entertaining and in keeping with the current trends you're seeing with young people. So we look to gaming as a frontier because we look at video games today and they've really evolved from your typical shoot 'em up kind of video games, right? We have video games now that are really focused on storytelling and historical narratives and telling rich histories of different civilizations. And
give us some examples of those. Like the first one I can imagine is when you first did video games, I was thinking like Mario Kart or Super Mario. And then you kept on explaining. And then I thought about, maybe something like Tomb Raider or Assassin's Creed or some of those other kind of story, history, mystery, puzzle solving games?
Yeah, all of these are part of the evolution and the growth of video games, and they've expanded their audiences once it became outside of just here's a car, drive it, and telling more stories. And then you had things like along that evolutionary path like Tomb Raider, which may have been well intended, but again, it's called Tomb Raider, and you really don't want to be in a heritage destination and applaud anything titled Tomb Raider, because you don't want anyone raiding your tombs. That's the exact opposite of what you want to encourage. So that kind of Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider, not the best example of what you want to tell about history and heritage, but Assassin's Creed, which is the last example you mentioned, is a fantastic example. Because there is a clear kind of deliberate cognitive dissonance that you say, well, I'm not going to graffiti the Colosseum. We've seen that just happen a few months ago, right? So these are things that are a lot more plausible, and you don't want to encourage them. But Assassin's Creed has evolved to be more of a storytelling franchise, and that's evidenced by a few things. Just to double click on that franchise, because as you can tell, I have a particular affinity to it. During COVID and lockdown, when teachers and educators were having a really hard time teaching things that we found boring when we went to school, like history, during lockdown over Zoom, the kids were just checked out. And Ubisoft, the company that makes Assassin's Creed, gave the educational version of Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Origins that told the story of the history of the ancient Egyptian
and ancient Greeks.
Empire and the ancient Greeks. They gave the walkthrough non-violent playable version, but still an engaging game to go through. That version away to schools for free. And all of a sudden you had these kids learning the history a lot better, doing a lot better on history tests than they did when they were in school.
And we're lucky because today there's people like you who understand the value of that. But when I was young and playing Age of Empires and Civilization, no one thought that was a useful endeavor. And now I have you. I wish my mom was listening. Now I have you. You're the executive director of innovation, and you're telling me that playing video games is not only entertaining and in a mild way is healthy, but you're telling me it's educational and people are getting real knowledge, real experience, real information by essentially toying with their controllers or their mouses.
Yeah, depends on the video game, and it depends on how that experience is directed, but absolutely. And then on the other side, we're seeing the barrier of entry into gaming become easier. It's faster and cheaper to develop a really good high quality game now. The AAA titles are still harder, but not completely inaccessible. And with a video game, you have an average engagement of 30 hours. So when we talk about Assassin's Creed, with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and the Ezio trilogy based in Italy, and there was a New York Times article that said that if the Italian Board of Tourism had paid for Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed, it would have been a really good investment. It would have been a better investment than all their direct marketing efforts. And there's been actually academic studies around that specific case study. And you saw actual DMOs set up and prop up to meet the influx and the demand of tourists coming in to Italy to look at the same sites that they experienced in the video game. And it actually drove tourism to parts of Italy that had completely dried up as tourist destinations at the time.
So that leads us perfectly into our next question. We're going deeper into the intricacies of AlUla's audience strategy with Ahmed Daoud, the Executive Director of Innovation at the Royal Commission for AlUla. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
So tell us, Ahmed, why are you targeting different audiences? And what we talked about previously explains why we targeted young people as some of the audiences. And who else are you considering as your target audience? And we know the Royal Commission of AlUla is considering the whole world its audience, right? I mean, 200,000 years of civilization. We have rock formations and mountains that are more than 500 million years old. People from all over the world, all walks of life find that interesting. But from your perspective, from your day-to-day, who are your target audiences and why have you selected those target audiences?
Well, The responsibility of selecting the target audiences is done by people a lot smarter than me in our destination management marketing office and our broader tourism sector. And they've developed very careful and smart strategies about the appropriate way, going back to that understanding that tourism in AlUla needs to be developed in a way that's appropriate and that is considerate of multiple different factors and constraints. And we don't want to massify. We don't want over-tourism. We don't want that strain on our local community. We don't want that sort of strain on our heritage.
So you're not looking to be like the next Phuket or the next Rome or the next Paris?
Yeah. So our target is 2 million annual visitors. And that's a large number, but it's not too large by standards of many other tourist destinations annually, and that's capped for a reason. So we want AlUla to be, for the foreseeable future, a boutique destination that really attracts the kind of people interested in the kind of storytelling, the diversified cultural and arts and heritage offering that we have to come to AlUla. But as we mentioned earlier, the world is changing, and your view of who's going to be interested in this needs to be as nuanced and as evolving as the world around you. So when we talk about young people, we're seeing that wealth is trending younger. People who are younger are more interested in traveling. They're becoming exposed to other cultures through social media and looking to travel. Many young people, I have people on my team, younger innovation enthusiasts and people in the innovation department who've planned their entire vacations when they take their annual leave from TikTok. Right. And so the world is changing. People who you may assume are not interested in this kind of heritage and this kind of storytelling are becoming interested in it. So you have to adapt to that change, and you have to understand that the nuanced perspective is really what's going to help you win.
When we get back, we'll uncover AlUla's timeless allure with Ahmed Daoud. More insights coming up as we continue on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
And we're back with Ahmed Daoud, the Executive Director of Innovation at the Royal Commission for AlUla. All right, so we talked a little bit about the Royal Commission for AlUla considering to ensure a lasting appeal and effect and relevance in the future and for future generations. And we touched up a little bit on the video games for younger audiences and not so young audiences. I mean, people in their 30s, like myself, people in their 40s, the generation before me, are playing video games. But besides video games, how else are you trying to secure future interest in AlUla and lasting interest?
Well, I think the gaming is a huge part of that strategy. Like you mentioned, gaming, we were just talking about how wealth is trending younger. We're seeing that gaming is trending older, right? So play in general, gamification is something that older and older demographics are being more interested in. So you look at Lego, for example, which is the brand that many children, when I was younger, myself included, was a brand we loved the most. Right now, their primary focus is the AFOLs, the adult fans of Lego. And that's where they're getting the fastest growth. And same with video games, right? It's not the teenager eating Cheetos anymore, right? Elon Musk is an avid video game player. A lot of the Crown Prince plays video games. There's a lot of very serious, people with really significant roles to play in the world that we live in today who are avid video gamers, or at least find an outlet through video gaming. And that's been destigmatized. So there was a stigma around the gamer being the nerd or the person who has no other outlets, but it's become a viable outlet for many people and people who have influence. So we're seeing that destigmatization leading to gaming trending older. So in terms of what else are we doing to keep AlUla relevant, right? I think is what you were asking. Where we just recently announced this. I'm really happy that I can publicly talk about it. I've been on some stages lately where I just was really itching to talk about this, but couldn't. But we just announced the Scale Up Hub, which is a program that aims to matchmake between challenges and really using the kind of innovation definition of challenges, meaning opportunities or challenges in the typical sense, right? So we're looking at these challenges and matchmaking these challenges with mature startups. So these are startups in investment lingo that are in Series A, mostly a little bit in Series B. So they've already raised a round of funding from reputable institutional investors anywhere in the world.
So they already know the ropes.
They already know the ropes. They have product in market. So really what we're trying to de-risk is massive distraction and waste. So what we're trying to solve for is, so far, there hasn't been a really good model for an organization to engage the really far S end of the SME spectrum. And when you get into the startup phase, really it's a lot of risk. It's a lot of risk for an organization like with an objective and a vision as important as delivering AlUla. So we had to figure out, how do we build a model that disciplines this into a risk profile that fits within our risk appetite?
From what I understand, the SMEs are providing very niche solutions. It's not like someone coming up to you and saying, hey, I want to open a restaurant. Or, hey, I want to pave your roads. Or, hey, I want to build the cellular towers. I want to be a part of it, build you infrastructure. From what I'm assuming, and please, you're here to correct me, these SMEs are providing very small, niche, focused services or products that are inherently enhancing your delivery plan.
Yes, and creating a great experience for our visitors, for our residents, or helping us do all of that sustainably. So whatever fits within that ecosystem and aligns with key priorities or key challenges, that there aren't obvious solutions out there in the market from the big players that we always play with, the big companies that we always work with. This is the kind of stuff on the periphery that I was talking about that's really interesting, right? This is the fiber optics that could solve problems in agriculture. What startups are coming up with solutions that solve these problems that are seen to us through otherwise non-obvious solutions, right? So we've talked to a company that's able to recycle all the cooking oil in AlUla into biodegradable, sustainable plastics. Right. So that solves challenges in how do we deal with food waste? How do we reduce supply chain challenges and having to import plastics?
Landfill?
Yeah. And so, for example, with date production, there's a lot of dates that don't get sold. They just don't make the cut. They're not good enough to be sold. This is bio waste. And now this solution can potentially allow us to sell AlUla dates in plastic boxes that are degradable, made of AlUla dates.
Yes.
Right.
Or be made into animal husbandry food like camel feed or cow feed or chicken feed.
Or we can turn them into, using that same solution, into the forks and knives used in the restaurants, right? Plastic cutlery. We're looking at some startups that create really great voice assistant AI products that actually are secure and safe enough to use in hotel rooms. There's a reason why you don't have Alexas and for privacy concerns in hotel rooms, but they actually make a custom-made product that actually fits within the privacy standards that you need for hotel rooms. So what we're going to do is, first of all, filter them by the level of maturity, but maybe that's not enough. So we're actually going to bring them into AlUla, make sure that they can AlUlify, so to speak, their solution, that it can fit, that it makes sense, that the business really gets a really good feel for it, that we believe that the impact on the local community is going to be something desirable as opposed to undesirable. And after these 2 months, they graduate into a pilot, so they get a paid contract. This is non-dilutive to any of the startups, so we don't take any equity. We don't need any exclusivity or rights over your IP. This is all upside for the startups. We'll provide them with a great program in a magnificent destination, magnificent location, in an organization that has an ethos revolving around innovation, that has an appetite for this. And the upside for them not only is a great program, but potentially a very lucrative contract if they're able to solve some of the challenges we're looking at.
You were just about to zip through my next question.
Coming up, Ahmed Daoud reveals the cheat codes for AlUla's success. We're about to explore how Scale Hub powers local startup growth right here on Artifact.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
If we're to go back to the video games, you're about to give us the cheat codes. You know what I'm saying? The left, double O, double X, double, triple triangle moves. How does the Royal Commission for AlUla, through its Scale Hub, contribute to growth and development of the local startup ecosystem in AlUla?
The way you have this kind of network effect, right? This effect of seeding and then growing that happens with startup ecosystems, right? Having these startups not just work with AlUla, but actually come and live in AlUla, having these executives of these startups that really understand this world, understand how to identify a problem, how to solve a problem, how to use the right technology, build the right team, find the right resources to solve a problem that's scalable. Having these people come and be embedded in AlUla for a considerable amount of time. Every time we do this, we don't intend to just do this once. This isn't going to be a one-hit wonder. We hope for this program to be incredibly successful and then continue to be something that becomes a new value add and value proposition for AlUla as well. Because this program is really all upside, we're not taking anything from these startups. Not only is this a really valuable program, we're working with some of the world's best companies and organizations to provide a really great value add program for them that can help propel their growth. We're becoming real partners in this success and really not asking for anything.
So is this your response to Silicon Valley? Are you going to have like a Palm Valley? Are you going to have Kama Valley? Or is this...
We're trying to solve problems for AlUla in the best, most creative, most innovative, most efficient ways that make this destination, make the county successful, thriving, and revenue positive. We're trying to create something that's very much value driven. And all we ask for in return is that if we ask of you to support the local community, to mentor local startups, to be engaged with the local farmers. If you have an agricultural solution, we expect you to do that as well. So we can expect some of these CSR elements from them.
Right.
Because we're not taking anything else.
Absolutely. So I just want some exclusive question because I think I'm the only one who's going to have the privilege and the pleasure to get so up close and personal with the person leading this initiative at the Royal Commission for AlUla. If you could give us some insights, some very secretive insights, the type, the profile that you're looking for in more exact terms as far as startups, because we have lots of young people, young entrepreneurs listening to us. What is the winning profile or the winning deck? What is it looking like to you?
Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't tell me a lot of fluff about what your next business is going to be, because you're going to use all of the data you get from the solution to branch off a new business and your revenue is going to grow, because I'm not an investor. And the person sending that deck needs to also understand that I'm not really the one filtering. It's the RCU businesses that have really practical on the ground needs that, while they're open to new ideas and incredibly innovative, they're not interested in the fluff. We understand our domain. You're capable of creating new value, and you're capable of respecting the authenticity of the place where you're going to apply the solution, right? If you're taking a piece of technology that you came up with, that you're proud of it, and it's your hammer, and every destination or every customer is a nail, and you're just trying to
whack all of them with your hammer,
that's not going to fly. But if you say, I have something that can really solve a problem for you here, or it can really help you unlock a new opportunity, a new value for the destination, I've taken my time to understand what AlUla is to the best of my ability, right? It's a place you can never understand until you visit, but to the best of your ability. And I believe this is something that can create mutual benefit, mutual value. We're interested in that symbiotic conversation.
As we wrap up this exclusive conversation with Ahmed Daoud, discover the sectors that will shape the future of small and medium enterprises in AlUla. Stay tuned on Artifact for this crucial revelation.
Artifact with Joshua on AlUla FM podcast.
The sound of Arabia.
And we're back with Ahmed Daoud.
When it comes to the Scale Up program, the Scale Up initiative that you're working on, what are the high priority sectors that you're targeting for those SMEs in the far south S's of those SMEs to focus on? What would you call people to focus on?
Well, we're looking for everything that fits within the broader tourism industry. So, what I've been referring to internally as tourism plus, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's how we have to think about tourism in AlUla. Again, I'm the service provider. The real customer, the real client is business leaders who are directly and primarily responsible for what's actually being built in AlUla. I
Right.
don't build anything. Right?
And they are the agents, essentially, of the community in AlUla.
Yes, and they're really good at that. They're really good at balancing what are the commercial needs, what are the commercial objectives, but how do we do that with responsible stewardship? So what's really important is to understand that they're the ones looking at your solution, right? And you have to come in knowing that your solution has to fit their expectations, has to make sense, has to be scalable as well.
So we're focusing on agriculture, for instance.
Well-
we're focusing on...
So Tourism Plus is going to be what are core tourism applications. Do you have a great solution? We've seen a company that actually does that, where you can hold up your phone and it can show you interactive guides in augmented reality of a great thing to do 2 miles in that direction, right, in your destination. And everyone who goes there can leave these video and audio notes all over a destination, that anyone with that same app can find these notes and learn more about the destination from other people who've been there. So you can have Alicia Keys coming to AlUla and saying, this is really the thing I love the most about visiting Hegra, and people can come and listen to that or see that. Or you could be doing something that directly related to tourism, or you could be helping us create a sustainable ecotourism destination, which is really important to us. If you're able to recycle used cooking oil into plastics that are biodegradable and don't harm our planet and our environment, that's fantastic as well.
Amazing. And I think, although I'm very happy and proud to be a radio host at the Royal Commission for AlUla at AlUla FM, I also got my entrepreneurial spirit. And I feel like not only am I able to share this great knowledge, I myself personally was able to benefit from these insights, these exclusive insights that you only hear here at AlUla FM. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Ahmed Daoud, the Innovation Executive Director at the Royal Commission for AlUla. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed, for your time and your generous sharing of knowledge and experience.
Thank you very much. This was an incredible pleasure. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
sir.
Thanks for listening to Artifact.
Thanks.
Subscribe for more great content right here on AlUla FM podcast. The sound of Arabia.